Yep. It's done and it's looking awesome. It looks so good. The only problem is it's an utter dust magnet. I mean, even just walking in here after taking the shots outside, it just goes, the dust just goes, wah! And it's covered in, I mean, maybe it's got some sort of static charge or something. Does anybody know if there's anything I can wipe down a body shell with? Like a cloth or some sort of spray or something I can wipe it down with which makes it repellent to dust or something? Because that happens with all new shells, but this one seems to be worse than the rest of them. I mean, it's utterly plastered with dust. But anyway, the paint job is not the best I've ever done. This body shell is not the best job I've ever done, but it's definitely the best body shell I've ever done because the colour with the shape, it's stunning. It is so stunning. The colour is, I'm so pleased with the colour. There's some imperfections. Partially that's because I'm not the greatest spray painter. And the second reason is, Tamiya are very, very stingy with the amount of paint they give you in a can. So I ran out of translucent red a little bit earlier than I was hoping. I ran out of metallic silver a little bit earlier than I was hoping. And I ran out of black a little bit earlier than I was hoping. So there are some areas where the paint isn't as thick as some other areas. So yeah, but overall, holy crap, that looks awesome. That looks so good on the racetrack. That's going to look amazing. So I spent yesterday getting this sitting right, getting the arches cut right and everything. So yeah, and it sits nice and low with the chassis, but there's no fouling on the steering, so everything's good. If you saw part 1, you'll also know I was working on the shocks and the suspension. It has the RCing-S shocks all round. Now, these are newly fitted. You'll notice there are also springs on them. I had to order springs. I was running the XXX-S yellow springs at the front and XXX-S orange springs at the back, which is as soft as I could get the car set up. Well, I could technically run orange all round, but I like a slightly stiffer spring at the front than the back. They were very soft. Sorry. The orange ones at the back were rated at 8.6 pounds. Front ones 9.6. Very, 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 very light. The softest springs rated for these shocks, the RCing-S shocks, are 10.5. So even the very softest ones aren't as soft as the ones that are in the front of this. So I'm going to run it 10.5 at the back, 12.5 at the front, because those are the two softest options. Right now I'm running 10.5 all round because the 12.5s haven't arrived yet. I've got it set up reasonably okay in terms of ride height and everything. I still have to do the camber and towing, etc. And I had to set the droop for the first time. I never had to set the droop previously in this car because the droop was such that the springs were falling out of their cups. So I spent yesterday doing that, trying to get the car dialed in and set up, which was fine. So I got it all running nicely, sounding sweet. Got the body shell on. You'll notice I've tidied the cables for the new radio system just a little bit. So everything was fine. I was darting around the floor. Then there was a horrible cracking sound. What was that? And then I was looking at it, I'll give it a little bit of throttle. There's another one, there's another cracking sound, there's another cracking sound. So I wanted to get access to the belt. Took the bottom cover off here, and this is what I found. The belt is knackered. See, there's broken there, don't know if you can see that. There's a tooth missing there, teeth missing there, teeth missing there, teeth missing there, and there, and there, and there, and there, and there. Basically, as I was driving around the floor, it started spitting teeth because this belt has been sitting, the car has been sitting for nearly 5 years since it was last run, and these Losi belts that came with this car, particularly, not the later Losi models, there's another tooth just fallen off. The belts are very efficient, but they're very susceptible to degrading, and if they're sitting for a while, especially in oxygen, if you've got it sealed in the bag when you first bought it, it seems to be okay. So this belt's knackered. Unfortunately, this is the later final version of the belt that came with the car. The black version's the HD, the heavy duty belt. It's also longer. This is a longer length than the two standard size ones. You get the blue one, which was the very first one, and the yellow one, which is better, and then the black one, which was the best, and it was longer. It allowed the car to be run looser, with less friction, and yet still have enough tooth engagement that there was no skipping of teeth. So this is gone. I don't have another black belt. So whatever I fit won't be as good as this. I do have a yellow one sitting in a packet. But what I did also have is 2 aftermarket Kevlar belts. Kevlar belts don't degrade and they don't stretch, so they are much harder wearing. So I thought, yes, I'll fit a Kevlar one. Rather than the yellow one, the yellow one's still sealed in the packet, it won't degrade. And the good news is, because I'm using a standard length belt, I can use my red, I don't know if you can see that, in there under the spur cover, I can use my red anodized belt tensioner. So, you know, every cloud, silver lining, all that. Anyway, this is the Kevlar belt I decided to fit. You might be thinking, no it's not in the car. Yeah, well, to replace the belt, you've got to take off the spur cover, 3 screws there, lift it off, take out the screws for the spur, 1 each side, and the tensioner, that's 3. The tensioner maneuvers out, you lift the whole out, and then the belt sort of loose over here. Then you've got to take back diff cover, 1, 2, 3, 4, under there, and then the back bumper, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then that slides off. Then you've got to remove, I think it's 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, 7 screws. Take the bottom cover off there. Front diff cover, again, 2 there, 2 underneath, and then front bumper, these 2 and these 2. And then the diffs still can't come out, because what you need to do is, see in here you've got this gap where the steering assembly goes through the chassis. That's actually sealed all the way around. There's a sort of square, well it's not really square because it's longer at one side, but it's, you can see it's not completely square, but there's a piece in there that's got to slide out downwards, which means you've got to take out the steering assembly, because the steering assembly goes through that gap. Well, I can't do that because this screw, where is it, that one, and there, it's utterly stripped and I can't get out. It's completely stripped out. So I had to take off one side and try and awkwardly maneuver it, and then eventually I got the belt out. And then the belt was obviously knackered. So I thought, well, I'll pick this one. I've got 2 Kevlar belts. I chose one at random, put this one in. Went through the reverse process, because then you can pull the diffs out, you see, once this is all clear. And then I wasn't going to bother servicing the diffs. The out drives are beginning to show signs of wear. I have new ones on the way, but they're not that bad yet. So I thought I'll do at least one more season with the out drives the way they are, and then maybe when I upgrade this to brushless, then I'll replace out drives, because they're fine. There's a little bit of play in them, but they're absolutely fine. So I thought, I'll service the diffs anyway, since the diffs are out in the cars and pieces. So I did that, then I went to fit this belt. Reverse all that process. It takes a good while. It takes maybe an hour to rebuild this car. And this belt's rubbish. It's too wide, it's too thick, and it doesn't have enough flex. Right? It looks okay in my hands here, but it doesn't have enough flex for the car. So it was fouling around the diffs each side, and the tensioner could not turn and tension the belt enough in order for me to screw the tensioner in. It just didn't work. I tried for ages, wasn't going to work. And even when you had the belt round one diff and it was free, because what happens if you've got it around one diff and it's free elsewhere, you can just pull it through your fingers and you can spin the diff and you can feel how much it was rubbing there. You know, it was, so this one's rubbish. But like I said, I had 2 from different locations. I don't know where this one's from. It doesn't have any markings on them. I do remember ordering a belt from Poland at some point. Now I don't know if it's this belt, or if I was simply ordering, for example, a Losi yellow or Losi black belt from an eBay seller in Poland. I don't know. Maybe this is the one made in Poland, maybe it's not. I'm not sure. I don't know. The one that I've now got in it is definitely made in America. I know that. It says made in USA on it. And it's from some guy who specialises in making belts for vintage cars. It's not Tough Racing. I know I've used Tough Racing before, but it's not that. I'll use Tough Racing next time, I think. This belt was also a little bit too, what's the word? I was also too stiff. It was also didn't have enough flex in it, but I did manage to get the tensioner working. And yes, the car is running free. I mean, it doesn't look like it because that's running on the motor, but it's running fine. Technically, this won't be running as loose or as efficient as before, because the black belt was the best belt. But to be honest with you, I never ever noticed any difference either way when I swapped over from the Losi yellow to the Losi black. Didn't notice any difference. So I'm hoping I won't notice any difference here, moving from the black to this Kevlar one. There might be a little bit more friction, I'm not sure. But it seems to be running fine, and the motor seems to be, even with the very lightest throttle, just enough to engage it. It is moving forward to the same rate. It does seem to be very sensitive on the throttle, just like before. So I don't think it's binding up anything. I think it's just as good. One benefit of the Kevlar is there's no stretching, so you'll get instant drive. I mean, it'll be fractional, but you will get instant drive, so that's a good thing. So that's what I was doing all yesterday, getting the Losi dialed in, rebuilding it, and now it sounds great. In fact, I'll show you. Nicely serviced diffs. Run them quite tight. Yes. There we are. Car's sorted. Car's running well. I do have one question though. Okay. This is obviously a LiPo I'm running now. Well, maybe not obviously, but it is a LiPo. I did mention before how cars used to be designed for all the weight one side to offset the balance of the weight of a nickel metal hydride. Wow, it's gone dark. Yeah. Running a LiPo, it's lighter. It's not a question of how do I offset the balance, because you can use things like wheel weights, etc. Right? It's more a question of how do I offset the balance without completely ruining the look of the car? Because, you know, personally I think that looks great, this old tuning car. I think it looks really slick. I love the aesthetics of it. I don't want to put wheel weights down one side and have these big lumps of metal. Is there any sort of subtle ones that don't look terrible? Maybe. So, there we are. I'm hoping to get racing as soon as possible. I'll be going offshore this week. Now, I'm going to try and get one more video in before then, but we'll see what happens. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.